Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everyone? Geoff, Mosher, Adam Caplan. And Adam, we have moved on into the offseason. We don't have a game to review tape of. That was our last podcast. The one before that was our reaction to the loss. So now we are officially in the offseason where podcasts will be very topical and thematic. And as we promised our listeners, this will be a AskITB, part AskITB Inside the Birds podcast, but also we'll get into the big press conference this week that took place with Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman. A lot of stuff to come out of that. So we've got a lot to talk about, which I imagine as the weeks go by here a little bit, we're going to have some things to talk about. They're going to be fun. That is part of this team being in transition and having a lot of questions gives us a lot of good content to fill before like the Combine and the Senior Bowl, which you'll be at, the Senior Bowl, and some other things come up on the schedule. So I'm excited about that.
Yep. There's never, since we started the show, there's never been an unending series of issues and challenges for this football team. There's always questions. There's controversy.
Right.
That's why we started this thing, because we wanted to get inside everything. And,
right.
It's funny. So we put on our show Wednesday morning that we're hearing that Roseman and Sirianni were going to speak on Wednesday. So I was like, I typically don't watch them live unless I think there's a reason to, unless there's something I want to hear about an injury. So I'm like, you know what? They're probably not going to say very much. What was I wrong?
You should have known better, dude.
I know. But I didn't think right out the bat. We'll get into that in a couple minutes here. I just was surprised. I want to say pleasantly surprised. I'm just glad that they did something that I didn't know if they would be willing to do, and I'm guessing they were coached up by their PR department. If they were, they obviously coached them pretty well. But yep. I just was debating, should I change my schedule? On Tuesday I found out that they were going to do this. I'm like, what should I do Wednesday? Should I rearrange my schedule to just be available for half an hour? I didn't know how long it would be. I didn't know anything. I had no details. It just who knew? I didn't know what. It's your typical GM head coach. They don't. Like, they usually give some decent nuggets at the owners' meeting, not the owner, the Combine, when the GMs and coaches speak, but they don't talk at the same time. Mm-hmm. But how much could they really say right now? Well, I was wrong. They did. It was good.
They did. There was a lot. And to your point, I think that there was something said or not said. Look, I think Nick Sirianni did something in the press conference that was way better than Doug Peterson ever did in his press conference. And it might have something to do with the PR staff, Bob Lang, Brett Strosacker, and that whole crew. So if it did, good job to them. We'll get into that in a second. I'll bring that observation up in a minute. Q&A is up. I thought they had a really good, really insightful Q&A. They talked about, obviously, what they thought about Jalen Hurts' season finale, what they thought about him as his progression from beginning to end of the season. They talked about the wide receiver group, what they think it's missing right now. They talked about Jalen Reagor, what they think is going on with him, the defense. I mean, they really went after a lot of different topics, good stuff. And you got to listen to it because, I don't want to give up some of the show, but they really have some interesting ideas on how to make the team better this offseason that I think is worth, listening to and hearing what they have to say. And likewise, we did our Inside the Birds TV with Greg Cosell this week because there was no pregame show anymore. We wanted to get Greg's opinion on not just the season finale, but kind of an overall rating of 1 year of Jalen Hurts as the starting quarterback and the rest of the offense and the defense too. And listen, the fascinating line that I think he said that we're going to talk a lot about this offseason is he said, look, you don't want to build your offense around limitations, right? You don't want to go in saying, well, we're limited here with the quarterback doing this, so how do we scheme around that?
That was so perfect.
Guys' strengths, right?
So let me just first of all listen to Q&A. I thought they were fair. I know some people thought they weren't. I don't agree with that. You got to listen to what they're actually saying instead of prejudging. Like, people sometimes, first of all, these are guys who want the Eagles to win, okay? But they played the game.
Right.
If they're going to come out with hard criticism, it's legit. They played.
Right.
But I think what happens is, it doesn't have to be Hurts. It could be any player. But when there's criticism of your favorite player, a player you really like, people overreact. They think that it's over-the-top criticism. It's not. It's just based on their tape study and their knowledge of the game. I just think sometimes people think that because and you'll hear Greg's ITB TV. It was a great interview.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the people who know the game like Q&A and Greg are telling you what the tape shows them, or what the tape shows them, plus what they know as a former NFL player. Then the great thing is, because they come from both sides of the football, you're getting two perspectives. It's just, I don't know. I think people think like some of the ex-players have it out for the current players, which could not be more opposite of the truth. They're just telling you what they see and think.
Look, no matter what we do, no matter what Q&A does, no matter what Greg Cosell does, there's always going to be a percentage of people who are sensitive to criticisms of the players that they root for. I think at this point, you're not going to convince 100% of the people. It's just always going to happen. But I do think,
of course,
the majority, right, of our listeners come to us for that kind of unbiased, objective analysis that they either get on this show from Greg or from Q&A, and appreciate it. But I've come to realize people have a difficult time taking constructive analysis or criticism of any type and not thinking that there's some personal agenda to it or some bias. And there really isn't.
Absolutely none.
Greg
Zero.
always says, it's what the tape shows. I mean,
Well, I love what he says. I love this line, and I was busting Greg's chops about a couple weeks ago on the pregame show. What the tape tells me, I'm like, what? Oh, does it speak to you? I didn't know that. Yeah, he didn't like it.
Tape whisperer.
Right, no, but he's like, no, it's what I saw. I get it.
Definitely.
But no, Greg, I'm going to bring up something. We'll get into the press conference stuff and your questions. But there's one thing that Greg said that reminded me of someone what the Rams told me about Jared Goff and his limitations. Jared Goff got the Super Bowl with the Rams, but if the Rams, if Rams are being honest, they would tell you that Jared Goff was a severely limited quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate the word dumbing it down, but they try to make it as easy as possible for him. I get it. He was the first pick overall in 16. Wentz was number 2. It was almost like they would say, throw it here. Like they would roll him out and the throws right here. Like as easy as they can, they could make it for him to process.
Mm-hmm.
Hurts is not at that point, but the point is this, and you hear Greg, he's got limitations. And you don't want to long-term coach through guys' limitations all the time. Now, not everyone could be Tom Brady. The best player at his position in NFL history by far.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of quarterbacks in the National Football, Josh Allen, by the way, who's incredible, he has certain things that he has to get better with. But you don't want to limit your ability to score points and progress. And was my take from about a 25 to 30-minute talk that Geoff and I had with Greg on Wednesday. Thursday. I'm sorry, Thursday. Kudos to you guys getting up very quickly. It was good. We had a small thing we wanted to talk about, and then Greg was like, I guess it was a break from him doing he produces the matchup show, which is on Saturday, by the way. Don't miss it for the playoffs. Greg took a break, and man, he was raring to go. I thought we were done in 15 minutes. He's like, he wanted to keep going, so we wound him up, and he took it further.
Yeah, it was great. And so to that point, that you don't want to have to scheme around somebody's limitations, quarterbacks especially, what'll be fascinating this offseason is kind of trying to figure out what direction Nick Sirianni is going to go in with this offense, with their commitment that we'll talk about to Jalen Hurts. Is it going to be more run-heavy offense with zone read and Jalen Hurts featured as a runner who basically is the feature part of the running game? Or is it going to open up into more of a passing game, banking on more development from Jalen Hurts? And if that's the case, they're obviously going to have to start off the season the same way they just started off this last one, trying to throw the ball a little bit more. And if it doesn't work, there's going to be criticism, right, on Nick, and everybody's going to say he didn't learn his lesson from last year. But eventually, if that's your guy, then the development as a passer has to happen, or you're just playing, again, the other type of way where you're almost becoming Ravens-like in what you do with your offense and your running back and your quarterback being another running element. So it'll be fascinating. It's the big question of the offseason, and what direction will this team go with its offense if Jalen Hurts is the guy in the huddle. So I look forward to it. I think it's going to be a really interesting part that carries into mini camp, training camp, and then obviously the season. So everything that was said in the press conference is pretty much up on InsideTheBirds.com. We got stories about Jalen Hurts. I did a story on takeaways that had nothing to do with Jalen Hurts from the press conference. That's up on the website. We'll talk about that also in this podcast as well. So we got a lot to get to, and then we'll also get to some Ask ITB at the other half of this podcast. So let's get into it. First, we'll tell you, as we always do, to make sure you're checking out our friends at Deal Dash. It's the longest running penny auction penny auction website and app around. I mean, you got to get on it. Some of the things you get are just too good to be true. We've seen a car go for less than $900, a brand new TV for less than $200. I already am putting Adam Caplan up on Deal Dash to see if somebody will buy him for more than $3. We'll see.
I probably want a refund. No,
might get a refund. I don't know if they do offer that on Deal Dash, but the point is you can get so many wonderful discount items on Deal Dash, new items at discount prices. So don't be a loser. Stop paying full retail price for things you want and get on Deal Dash. Go to dealdash.com or download the Deal Dash app and use that promo code ITB. When you register using the promo code ITB, you will get bonus free bids. And who would turn their nose up at the chance to just start winning right away with bonus free bids using that promo code ITB. So make sure you're checking out our friends at Deal Dash. All right, let's start the pod. We'll talk about the press conference. I think it's funny. They have this press conference, right? And then Nick says his stuff and Howie says his things. And then I listen to a little sports talk radio. I check Twitter a little bit, and it's it's like, did Howie Roseman really commit or not commit to Jalen Hurts as the starting quarterback? I'm not sure. And Adam, I'm sure you've listened to it. You said you watched it live.
I guess what I did. Okay, guess what I did. I never do this.
You watch it live, right?
Well, no.
Oh.
So I always we always post the transcript when we get it on our message board. So you could every transcript the Eagles make available to the media we get. So we post it. So everyone could, if you want to talk about it or see it, no problem. So I was working, as you see here, I was getting ready to do something, and I was just, getting notes together for something else I was doing. And I was listening, I was listening like 50-50, not usually super attentive to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I hear Sirianni talk about he wasn't glib about it, but he was like very matter of fact that Hurts is going to be the start. I'm like, you ever see the meme where it says what? W-U-T?
Yes.
I said,
yeah.
What did he? I was just like, what the hell was I doing? How did I not hear? Wait, I was like, because I heard Howie speak. And boy, he was speaking glowingly. I wasn't sure what to think of it, as you just said. And then when Sirianni talked, I'm like, what did I miss? Oh, and I'm so mad at myself because you can, folks, here's a pro tip for you. On Twitter, you can, as soon as it's over, you could replay it, just like you could replay our pregame shows.
Yep.
Immediately. So what I did is I moved the stick back.
Oh, okay.
I guessed when they spoke, and I was just like, I can't believe this. This is
right.
Not what I was expecting, but I was like, what? This is good because now they've killed the speculation. Even if they wind up trading for a veteran quarterback or drafting quarterback in the first round, that's not the point.
Mm-hmm.
The fact of the matter is, based on what they said, now I know Sal Powell would say, I love this line. Don't worry about what they say. Pay attention to what they do. Never truer words with this organization.
Yep.
Last 20 years, but I have to take them at their word. Do you?
Yeah. I sort of do. So I'll get into it for a second, but I think it's funny if you airlifted somebody from I don't know, Indonesia who could speak English and hear English, but has never watched a single play of NFL football. If you airlifted that person and sat them down to watch the Zoom, right? And afterward you said, do you think Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni just committed to Jalen Hurts? They would look at you and say, what are you, how many times do they have to say, yes, yes, they committed to Jalen Hurts? So, and that's, so what I'm trying to say is there was no equivocation in that press conference.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
But afterward, right, you hear everybody saying, Did it sound to you like that was a real tight commitment? I don't know. I didn't really hear him say. It's like you'd have to.
What do they talk about? I don't know.
No, honestly, it's fair because
the media did a great job.
The people who say that.
Yeah.
No, hold on. The people who say that. The people who say that are exactly echoing the sentiment that you are. We know that there are things that are said that don't wind up being true. In fact, I was the one that asked Howie and reminded him that it was at this time last year. He said that Carson Wentz he laughed about the fingers on the hand. Yeah, but and people are like, that's not a fair comparison. He didn't know that Carson Wentz wants to be traded. Yes, he did.
Yes, he did.
Yes, he absolutely did.
But I will tell you, because we reported it on our show. I think maybe some other reporters had it, but I know this. We had heard very strongly from multiple people that most, if not all, the head coaching candidates were told that Wentz would be the quarterback. Now, we know things would change. My guess is, because I don't know the answer to this, no one seems to know.
Right.
At what point did obviously the Eagles thought they could convince Wentz to stay?
Correct.
I don't know what the talks were like. I don't know how heated they got. Did they try and he just said, no, I'm out? I don't know. But I do know this. Several of them thought that Wentz was going to be the quarterback. And my strong suspicion is because they actually believed he would be, then they could convince him, but they couldn't. It didn't happen, and we don't know.
Right. So the bottom line is, you're right. I think the writers did a good job, but I think those in the alternative medias were like, I don't know. I kind of didn't hear a real hard commitment. I'm like, you absolutely did hear a commitment. And now, if you're saying that you don't believe it, I'm with you. That's fine. That's fine. You have a right to that opinion based on past press conferences and what was said. But they absolutely did give a strong commitment, and I agree with you. I think that when you look at it, when all's said and done, Adam, I think that they understand that it's going to be very difficult if they want to acquire a top-level quarterback, whether it's Deshaun Watson or Russell Wilson, who knows? So, I mean, I think, will they try? I'm in the camp of yes. I think they'll still try. They'll place phone calls. Obviously, the Deshaun Watson legal situation still has to play itself out, and I don't know that it's any closer to being over than it was at this time last. Well, this time last year it wasn't out yet, but the point is, I don't see them trading up to number 1 or number 2 to get a quarterback to be their guy next year. So either because they have a lot of holes and they got 3 first-round picks, and I don't think they want to package them all up to move up all the way up the draft. So it's either you got that small chance of getting yourself a Watson or a Wilson or whoever. I don't think it's going to be Aaron Rodgers. So or you got to go with what you got, and right now you got Jalen Hurts. Now maybe they'll draft a quarterback like second round or something like that. Maybe to come in and compete, but that doesn't mean that it's not Jalen Hurts' job. So they leave a little bit of wiggle room with what they say, but in general, this is a Jalen Hurts operation in my mind unless they're able to get the bag, as they say, and get one of those big time guys.
Well, I thought Jimmy Kempski's question was really good. This is the kind of questions that the media should be asking, because you can't let them get away with not having to answer hypotheticals. This is where you got to give a hypothetical question to them. Jimmy asked, while you said, okay, Howie, because you have extreme draft capital this year, 3 first-rounders, 15, 16, and 19, you'll be in better position than other teams to trade for an elite-level quarterback should one become available. While you said that Jalen answered a lot of questions for you, if the right player is available at the right cost, are you willing to make that kind of move that might not be possible in future offseasons when you have fewer assets to trade? This is such a great question.
That is a great question.
It's the best. Look, this is one of the best press conferences the media's I know it's their only chance. For those two guys together, they just did a great. You obviously asked a great question, and this is the kind of question that has to be asked. You cannot let these two guys, particularly the GM, get away with not answering hypothetical.
Right.
Roseman, answered it. He talked about the first half of his answer was just general. Then he goes, "These opportunities, those assets you talk about, allow us to continue to build and really help us add good players to this team. Our job is to look at everything, to evaluate every position, every player. We do that." Not only for right now in this moment, but we also do that so we have information when players become available at any position. He's opening up to look, if someone comes available, they're going to look at it. That's true. So we're not even having that conversation. If Jalen Hurts, we were asked this question, and we could just answer it now because it's totally hypothetical and didn't happen. But let's say they went on a run. He was a big reason why. You could have said he's our franchise quarterback. If he went off, if he pulled a Joe Flacco in the playoffs, like one of the best runs in playoff history, 2012, he could have eliminated any questions, and you could have said he would have had to be great. He's never really played great other than the Denver game this past season.
Right.
But he had moments, and Cosell's talked about it, and so's Avant on our pregame show, where you go, wow, okay. And Greg says it in the interview we did with him on Thursday. There were some throws where you go, wow, okay, you're onto something here. But then there just weren't enough of them. You're hoping to build on that, and that to me is why they're saying this. They saw enough. Now, what we don't know is to move this along here. I know that Sirianni said he had not talked to, as of Wednesday, Jeffrey Lurie about to have his end season meeting. By the way, it's not like they don't talk all the time. Sure that they talk. So, do we? We know the owner was heavily involved in that decision, to trade up for Hurts. But what we don't know is how much of an impact, or did he influence what Roseman and Sirianni said. I can't answer that. I know that's the next thing I'd love to know, and we'll be working on that.
Yes, we will. We will. So you bring up also a point that he made, that he hadn't had his end of season meeting yet with Jeffrey Lurie. And that's where I thought to myself, he's already doing better than Doug Peterson in the end of the year press conference, because when he was asked, Adam, if his coaching staff was coming back, he said, I'm still evaluating everything. I'm still talking to players. I'm still talking to coaches, right? Totally learned from the mistakes of the past. And again, maybe this was because PR really got on him on this one, or maybe he was just smart enough to know not to say it there because he hadn't yet met. But if Doug Peterson had said the same thing, 3 years ago before meeting with Jeffrey Lurie and then having to reverse course and fire guys he said were staying, right? If Doug had done that the way Nick Sirianni did, then it's not, blowing up in the media the next 2 days after it happens or whatever. But that does tell me, Adam, and this is pretty common with first-year head coaches, right? First-year head coaches have to put together a staff on the fly. They often have to bring up guys from college ranks. They have to bring up guys who are free agents, who are not in contract. So it's not uncommon for a first-year coach to make some changes on his staff by year two, once other guys who he liked are out of contract status, or, and plus after he's evaluated some of the guys who are holdovers. So what I'm wondering about over the next 3, 4, 5 days is, are there going to be changes somewhere in the Eagles coaching staff? And as I wrote on InsideTheBirds.com, there is no team that hires and fires assistant coaches and position coaches even after making the playoffs like the Philadelphia Eagles do. And I detailed all the people who have come and gone in the last 5 or 6 years.
Oh boy!
Specifically at certain positions. They've had 5 different wide receivers coaches in 6 years. 4 different defensive line coaches in 5 years, or 4 and 4, actually. That's what it is. So you look at some positions that haven't performed well this year, and I think those positions are obvious, and we'll have to see if there's any movement there among the coaching staff.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get to that when we get to the questions here from our
my
listeners.
bad. I didn't realize that was one of the questions. Okay.
No. But what I'm saying is, that's in there. That you knew that was coming. Like we'll definitely address it. Promise. Just understand, we sometimes report first who's been fired. We're not looking for anyone to get fired. It's just not the way we work.
Nope.
I know fans want certain people fired and all that stuff. It's we'll tell you where things have to be better, and sometimes it give you hints on where a guy might be in trouble. But we're not going to come out and say that this guy's going to get fired or he's in trouble. We're not going to do that. It's not what we do.
Right.
But I get it, the angst, and you can see when players aren't being developed well enough that things have to be better, and that leads to questions.
Yeah, it's amazing that there's always like a small segment like, this of the fan base, this guy's got to get fired, this guy's got to go, this guy's got to go, and I always say, like, do you notice the trend of the Eagles just getting rid of coaches every year and then bringing in new ones, and then they're getting rid of those guys a year later, then bringing in new ones? It's there's something to be said. We've talked to Joe Banner about this. And, Joe kind of met me halfway. He thinks it's important that when you make a mistake that you recognize it immediately and correct it. I agree. I totally agree with that. But then part of your mistake, if you're constantly doing this, especially in the same position, is your hiring practice, your vetting. You've got to do a better job so that you don't have to be correcting mistake year after year after year. And that is certainly an area where the Eagles have been deficient in the past. So
I would say, right, you make a great point in vetting, because this has been a problem when the wrong people get in. I'm not talking about the Eagles specifically. I'm just talking about in general for 32 teams. When the wrong people are vetting, the problem is, Joe told me a story about a coach who they hired, and the guy, whoever they got information from was not being truthful. They would later find out, because the guy was not he was not as good at. The guy wound up being way more deficient in certain areas than the person who they spoke to get a recommendation. And a lot of coaches lie about their friends. They just do. It becomes a real problem. It's not something we've really talked about much, but it happens, and it's really pathetic sometimes. Where I could tell you, if you listen to 200 coaches, if you and I came up with a list of 200 coaches, I could tell you right off the back 100 of them who can't coach, based on the guys I spoke with who are truthful. Any team should be able to find out the truth with these coaches, but the problem is they lie a lot about their friends, and that becomes a problem. And then, unfortunately, sometimes it's too late. As you're talking about, the vetting process sometimes bad because they don't talk to the right people. That's why teams make bad mistakes on head coaching hires. It's like, who did you talk to? You know,
I'm with you.
It's unbelievable. Some of these head coaches who get jobs, and now Joe is right though. If you know, Rob Trzynski, Joe fired Rob Trzynski he was the Browns head coach. He was really in over his head. Great guy, a good play caller. He just was not a head coach.
Right.
And they knew it immediately. And I remember when I got to know Joe at ESPN, we talked about it, and it was shocking when they fired him. But he knew it immediately. Like if you're around someone all the time, you go, you know what, the guy's overmatched. It's not going to happen. You don't belabor it as long as it's to the point where you go, this is never going to work. You got to do it. Yeah,
if you think it's hurting, you have to do what's in the best interest of the franchise. And if you think you've got a guy who's hurting your franchise, even if he's the head coach, like the Jaguars just showed you, then you've got to. And then the Jaguars are a perfect example of you got to get rid of a guy if you made a mistake, but also of bad vetting. Because I don't know who told Shad Khan that it was a good idea to hire that guy in the first place. Was clearly wrong.
Didn't vet him well enough.
Yeah, did not vet at all. All right, let's also talk about a really interesting thing. If you look at the Eagles' end of year statistics, Adam, Quez Watkins had almost 300 receiving yards more than Jalen Reagor, and he played more snaps. Not a whole lot, but he wound up playing like 2% more snaps than Jalen Reagor. But it certainly never felt like Quez Watkins was the number 2 wide receiver. It always felt like they didn't have one, and you were waiting for Jalen Reagor to be it. But it was very interesting to hear Nick Sirianni just define it. Like that was intentional. He said, hey, Quez Watkins is our number 2 receiver. Talked about the speed that he has, the big playability, and then said, hey, Jalen, we need more from him. He has potential to be a really good number 3. He did say he has extreme talent, which I think he came out of college with extreme talent. I'm almost feel blue in the face of you and I telling people that the kid was going to go late first, early second. You can call it whatever you want, but it was not like they took a kid with the 5th round grade in round 1. It
wasn't a Marcus Smith pick. It was not a Marcus Smith pick. And by the way, listen to what Cosell says. Greg does a phenomenal job of explaining what the tape showed him coming out of college. He liked Jalen Reagor a lot. And as a lot of NFL people did prior to the draft and after the draft.
Yes.
I don't know. Greg, I don't want to give it away, but Greg's got some great stuff. I'm so glad we talked to him about it because when you really look at it, and no shot at Quez Watkins. He's a nice backup receiver who could run.
Right.
Sirianni, he's done this before. Like he had, I don't know what game. I don't know if it was game 1, the Atlanta game, when Hurts had a super high accuracy number against Atlanta. But to say it's one of the best NFL games he's ever seen from a quarterback, I don't know if it was that game. It was certainly one of them earlier in the year.
Kansas City game was the one where he said it was the best.
Well. He played well. Definitely played well. But to say that, the tape didn't show that. I think he overdoes it to build up confidence in players.
Yes.
That's my opinion based on a lot of people I've talked to who are very close to him. I get it. There's nothing wrong with doing that. And the players love him anyway. He doesn't have to do it, but there's nothing wrong with showing confidence in your players.
Right.
But Quez Watkins he definitely improved. There's no doubt. He was a great story. Really after the first week of training camp, the hour went super up. And he's a nice player. He could run. He's got decent size. But to think I got to get this quote. This is unreal here. This is in the middle of his quotes, right? So Quez has big playability in him. I think out of the number 2 wideouts that's been around in the NFL, he could be one of the best number 2s that I've been around in the NFL because of his skill set, because of his ability to make plays. I don't know this guy, but it's absurd.
Like, think of the really good number 2s in the NFL. Adam Thielen is a number 2 to Justin Jefferson.
Great player, by the way.
He's a really good player. Now all of a
He's
sudden,
a great route runner, explosive. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, if Mike Evans is the number 1 in Tampa Bay, Chris Godwin is a hell of a number 2.
Unbelievable number 2. Oh,
yeah. I mean, we're putting to say he's one of the best number 2s. I mean, that was a little extreme.
I mean, I just think he overdoes it sometimes. I think he gets so excited. He's like, I love this guy. I want to build up his confidence. Maybe that's what he's doing. I don't know.
CeeDee Lamb, to Amari Cooper is a number 2.
Well, it depends. Yeah, it really depends on which week there. Yeah,
true. Whichever you want.
Right,
yeah.
But Quez Watkins, I'm hoping for the Eagles' sake he's not there. He's not starting. He'd be a great backup because he's got. Let's put it this way. He's got some upside. There's no doubt. I agree with Sirianni. He calls it big time speed. He can make plays, and the quarterback's got to be more accurate. He misses them. Definitely, that's part of what the tape shows, that he misses Watkins open in every game.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he's almost saying, without saying it, because he didn't talk about this, but Watkins must be great because based on what the tape shows him, maybe he thinks Watkins should have got the ball a lot more. Maybe that would make it great. I don't know, because it doesn't. It just doesn't. There's nothing in Quez Watkins. I know this. He dropped in the draft because of maturity. He dropped to the 6th round because he had some off the field concerns.
Mm-hmm.
We detailed it last year with Hightower and Watkins that they need to grow up a little bit, and Fulgham. There's Hightower, Fulgham, and Watkins.
Mm-hmm.
Hightower out, gone. Fulgham out. Watkins, he's the last guy of those 3. Right. We'll see how he handles it. His offseason last year, by the way, this past season was so. But we were told after the first week of training camp, he took off and he never looked back.
Yeah, he definitely had a good training camp. That was the rise of Quez Watkins. Absolutely. All right. Well, just really interesting, and we'll see what happens with Jalen Reagor. Everybody says, are the Eagles going to trade him? Are the Eagles going to get rid of him? Are they going to cut him?
Not cut him. No,
I don't think they're going to cut him. Maybe they look to trade him. Maybe it's a mutual. I mean, maybe he's going to want to get out just and be in a different atmosphere.
No. Who knows?
If you're already the number 3, and every time you get on the field, they're going to boo you. I mean, maybe it's just best to get a fresh scenario.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this on this. We'll see about Watkins being the 2, okay? But we know that Smith will be starting. I still think, because this is one of the questions we get for today, is about getting a veteran receiver, which we've been calling for a year now. With size, obviously. But let's say they do get a receiver in the draft or a veteran receiver. Smith, to me, Devontae Smith would be an outstanding number 2 receiver. Physically, he's just not there yet. He needs to put weight on. But he's obviously very gifted. He's kind of who they thought they were. They're going to get that. Barring something unforeseen, they're going to wind up getting that one right unless he gets hurt a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But Reagor, to me, and I remember you had a nugget. When did you have this about he might take some, and he might, I don't know where I don't have the numbers where he line up all the time this year, last season, but some teams did see him as a vertical slot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know if he's got I don't know if they did that with Nelson Aguilar. They moved him to the slot.
And it worked.
And he took off. I mean, now he still the year after would have the drop issues, but that 2017 year, he didn't seem to have them. And the thing with Nelson is, Jason Devon get about this too. Nelson could always get open. That wasn't really the issue. He could always get beat. Man, I mean, his feet were great. His route running was really, really precise and sharp and good. Jalen probably needs a little bit more work in that department before you just put him in the slot. And he can be right. There's 2 types of slots. There's the vertical slot that Nelson was, but then there's the Hines Wardish middle of the field slot. I think he can do that. Yeah. He's also a good run blocker. So if they're going to be a big, heavy run team again, then you could see him occupying some time in the slot. I think he needs to get away from the game for a week or two. Howie, him need to talk, his agent, whatever. Everybody's got to get together and say, what's the best thing for the franchise and what's the best thing for Jalen Reagor, and do those two things work synonymously? In other words, if the best thing for Jalen Reagor is I need a fresh start, then the franchise has to think, do we really want to bring back a guy who like, kind of like Carson last year, like who's just not, it's not working for him here and he doesn't want to be here. There's a whole lot to go into that. I just think that before we even just talk about maybe a change of moving him here or doing that, he's got to have a clear head. They have a clear head. They meet, and something productive has to come out of that.
Sure.
I would think.
Sure.
I mean, I know how he said he met with him and told him what he has to do to be better. Yeah. I still think it's too close to. I think they need like some time here, a week or two. Come back and let's have a conversation. Because you're right. Any moves that are dictated in the like, if they go out and sign a wide receiver or draft a wide receiver, then you're talking about that receiver, Devontae Smith, Quez Walker. Now Jalen's looking at the 4, right? He's like J.J. Arthur-Whiteside. Like now I'm trying to make the team as a special teams guy. He may not want to be in on that.
I would say this though. I would say this though. It's putting the best group of receivers available. Whether Reagor, if he's with the team, is the 2 or the 4. You roll guys in. You could still have a wide receiver by committee. A lot of teams do that. But the fact of the matter is the kid's too gifted to. I mean, it was rough watching him, and it was like, man, what is wrong with him? Right. Greg Cosell talks about it. Again, I don't want to give it away, but he said some things I wasn't expecting him to say, just based on his watching tape, and you could see body language sometimes, and it's just this is a guy that the college tape was really intriguing. That's why he was going to be a top 40 pick no matter what happened. We know there's a fact. Whereas I mentioned Marcus Smith. Marcus Smith was severely overdrafted in 2014. It was ridiculous.
Right.
Now, he would have gone the second round. I remember talking to the Raiders. They had a second round grade on him. They would have taken him if they're picking at I don't remember where they're picking at 14, but they said he was the guy that they had as a maybe mid to late second round pick. And based on pass rushers, they saw more as a 34 outside linebacker. There were issues with him in just terms of commitment and physical strength and all that. This kid has got explosion and all that, but he doesn't look like that guy anymore. It's a thing that I don't understand is what happened to that explosiveness.
I think it's a fair question. And, a lot of it, and Jason and Quentin talked about it, when you're in your head, when you're just not there mentally, your instincts aren't there. Your natural talent can't function the way it should because you're just thinking too much. We've seen that pressing. We've seen it. Loss of confidence with a lot. It's not just Nelson. We've seen it with a ton of athletes. Yeah. Nelly
went 2016. I don't wish what happened to him on anyone. When you can look it up, folks. It's out there. It's been reported on what happened to him. It's it's not the worst thing in the world, but it became a public issue where people were able to find out what happened to him off the field. And he apologized to the team, and they moved on, and they did a great job of crisis management with him, and he took responsibility for it and became better for it. Where Jalen Reagor's situation is very simple. Mm-hmm. He hasn't played well. He flashed as a rookie. He regressed significantly this past season. He's at a crossroads in his career. He's a young guy, and he needs to take responsibility for it. It's real simple. You can blame people all you want, coaches and Justin Jefferson stuff. That stuff is irrelevant right now. It's up to him. It becomes a point in your career, no matter what you do, you got to take responsibility for being a first-round pick and a player in the National Football League. You got to say, you know what? I got to do this. And I'm going to devote my offseason to it. And I like your point about decompressing for a little bit. Just get away from it. But at some point, you got to say it's either going to happen or it's not going to for me. That's kind of where it is.
No doubt about it. Agree. All right. I want to cover one more thing before we get to some AskITB. Okay. I want to do a really quick exercise with you. All right. Bang, bang, bang. Real quick.
Go.
Give me the 5 positional question marks you had about the Eagles at the end of the 2020 season. 5 biggest question marks.
Quarterback.
Quarterback 1.
Corner
2.
Linebacker.
Opposite Slay, right? Opposite Slay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Linebacker every year.
3, right?
Did I say wide receiver?
Yep. No, you didn't. So that would be 4.
Wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was whether they're going to trade Hurts or not. I mean, we knew they were going. We just didn't know exactly when.
Yeah, but I
Or
don't mean like that. I just mean like the
oh,
positions that you were, because you knew they had Goddard, so you
oh,
knew they were
safety. Oh, safety. Oh,
safety.
safety.
Good, 5, perfect. Okay,
I
now
know where you're going here.
give me the 5 positions right now for the Philadelphia Eagles that you're most concerned about.
Okay. Safety,
1,
wide receiver,
2,
linebacker,
3,
corner up because Nelson's up.
cornerback. Yeah, obviously 4.
Yep. And quarterback.
Okay, so you just listed, and I
I
did
know.
the same thing. The
I know.
5. So I asked this question because, and I'm not, I know what people are going to say, and I don't care. I'm just saying it.
Good.
Is this 53-man roster going into this offseason that much better than the one that finished 4-11-1? And mind you, while I say that, we know that the 4-11-1 team was not a 4-win team on paper. It had
True.
everything go wrong with it, right? I mean, everything under the sun went wrong that year. It wasn't a good team, but it wasn't a 4-win team.
No, I agree. Well, they had a
This
massive
team,
injury issue.
right?
Massive.
This team made the playoffs, won 9 games, but if it has the same 5 major question marks, is it really that much better than the year before? I think it's a fair question.
Very fair. I think it's very close. No, I'd say their offensive line was better. A, they're healthier, and B, Driscoll took a big jump. Didn't see that coming. He did.
That's true.
Malott took a monster jump. They were better, and
offensive line definitely more is better.
It's actually a great talk because we're gonna next week we start our offensive defensive series where we go through the whole thing. We do an autopsy on the roster,
right?
And I already have. It's funny you bring this up because I already have some thoughts, some stuff I had not thought about during the season, where just some discussions with people who looked over the Eagles roster. We were just talking about what was missing with them, and I'm like, oh wow, I didn't think of that. That's a good thing. I'm going to use that. Thank you. So
right.
I look forward to going over that next week because they've got a lot of draft. What do they have? 10 right now, plus compensatory.
Yeah.
So they've got a lot of work to do, though, and I do find it interesting that Roseman was asked a bunch of times before we move on here about potentially trading down. He acknowledged that that's part of it. That's one of those picks, getting extra first round picks. That's what Belichick did for so many years. He was Mr. Trade Down. He didn't believe in really trading up. He traded out a lot, and we get future picks. That's a great way to, if you believe in the draft like Bill does. He also this past year went insane. One of the biggest free agent classes in NFL history, because I think he said, all right, I'm getting older and going to spend some money here, and they did. They spent Robert's money, but this is a good time to build this roster. I really look forward to seeing what they do with all this.
I agree with you. They have an opportunity to really add on, but I think what my exercise showed is that the line between the margin between where they are now and becoming even better, like taking that step up to be a 10 or 11 win team, beating a couple of 500 teams, and the margin between regressing and not being a very good team next year, to me, is the same. In other words, if you can be like Washington, you can be like Chicago, you can be like Cleveland if you don't make the right moves and find yourself out of the playoffs. So the natural thing to say is, hey, they went from 4 to 9, they made the playoffs, they're on an upward trajectory. Not necessarily. It looks that way, but you're just as close to going backward as you are going forward when you're this 53-man roster with those question marks. That's
no, I agree. I think the roster has got a lot of holes. I think they overachieved. I don't. Now the record, their schedule in the second half was absurdly easy. I mean, they a lot of bad teams. And hey, you got to play the teams in your schedule, and they did a good job. That's a good. It's actually a good sign that the players play hard for the coaches, because I think sometimes players will coast some mentally when they know the game. It's a game they should just win anyway. Yep. Teams don't always win these games for the most part, other than that first Giants game, which was an abomination.
Right.
The first half of the second, it wasn't very good either, but they rolled the second half. But you're right. You did a good job there, man. The way you made me think that went through, I'm like, geez, now what you think about it, it's about the same as the year before.
Same questions, right.
Right.
All right. Well, speaking of questions, we'll get to our Ask ITB. First, I want to let everybody know, hey, we're on to the divisional round of the NFL playoffs, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, is celebrating with a huge odds boost for new customers. Counting down to Super Bowl 56, you can get 56-1 odds on any team. Bet just $5 and get $280 in free bets if your team wins. Are you not a new customer? That's all right. You can still get in on the action of the divisional round with the same game parlays. You know the deal. You just combine multiple bets from the same game for an even bigger payout. The more legs you add, the more money you can win. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. Best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code ITB and get 56-1 odds on any NFL team. Bet just $5 and win $280 in free bets if your team wins. That's promo code ITB for 56-1 odds at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 or older. Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. In partnership with Meadows Racetrack and Casino. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Guess what?
All right.
Guess what?
What's that? What up?
I went 6-0 versus the spread in the first round.
Nice. Good job by you.
Well, here's what happened. What's that?
You're taking me out to dinner
then? I would if I was betting, but on the NFL. I don't bet on the NFL. But here's what happened. So I do this stuff with Scott Farrell on Sports Grid.
Right.
So he told me I took the easy way out during the regular season. He gave me a challenge. He said, "Stop picking games without spreads." I'm like, all right. So I said, it's not that it's easy, but I get better clarity because, these injured players are going to play. Teams have more motivation.
Right.
So in fact, I also said on the Sunday show, I said, hey, do not take the Niners with the points. Don't give up the juice. Take the money line. Don't worry about it. You'll win the game and you'll feel better about it. The host, Mike Blow, is like, I don't know about that. You should always take the points. I'm like, if you like the team to win, it's like betting the NBA, right?
Right.
Why would you if you think the team's going to win, why give up the juice to take the 2
I'm with
points?
you. If you think the team, then you're just playing scared. Don't play scared.
Yeah.
I like it. Scared money don't make no money, as they say.
So well, you might as well talk about it. Who do you like in this game? Who do you like in this game?
I was going to hit you up on that after, but that's fine. I like there's one that I've been grappling with all year. All week long.
Yeah.
Well, what's the first game is Cincinnati, Tennessee. I think I like Cincinnati, Adam. I do. Derrick Henry playing. He hasn't played in a while. I just don't love the Titans as a playoff team. They're probably
nobody likes them. What is the man? Everyone's killing them.
Well, it's kind of like the same thing we talk about with quarterbacks, man. You want the big arm guy, and Burrow. I don't think this moment is too big for him.
He's unreal. I love him. Oh my God, yeah. So
I just think that they have more firepower. Is Julio going to actually play the entire game? I don't know. The one thing is, it's not like the Bengals defense is great, and I can see Derrick Henry just rolling up 210 yards on him.
Ogunjobi's done. He broke his foot. One of the starting D tackles. That's a killer. It's unreal what they have no depth now at D tackle. Mike Daniels got hurt, so they had to bring Zach Curran, who was on the Cardinals practice squad, so he's going to probably have to play. So
I like Cincinnati
plus a 3.5. Okay. I'm the opposite way. I like the Titans minus 3.5. They're great at home. 7-2 at home.
Mm-hmm.
They had a terrible game. I don't know what happened. They had a letdown against the Texans, but they're pretty healthy. Their D-line is no joke. Really good. Very underrated D-line. Love my man, Denico Autry and Jeffrey Simmons.
Mm-hmm.
They're really good. And the Bengals offensive line's not very good. I like them. Who do you like in the Niner-Packer game?
I like the Packers.
So do I.
Jimmy G banged up.
Yep.
They're going into Green Bay. I think the Packers are going to win.
Only undefeated team at home this season, Packers. Yep.
Right. All right. What's the spread on LA, Tampa? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yep, that's a game. Bucks, Rams. I'm looking at DraftKings 3.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do totals because it's too much luck. Who do you like?
I like the Rams.
So do I. Yeah.
I think maybe one too many injuries now for Tampa Bay to overcome.
Yep. And then finally, this is so tough. Bills, Chiefs.
I don't know.
-2.
Just give me the over.
53. Yeah, it's been 58. 38-20 was the first game. I know that whoever won last year scored 38. So odd.
Yeah.
I know the Chiefs won that game. Yeah, Chiefs won that game. The Bills won. Yeah, Chiefs won Bills won in Kansas City earlier. Man, Josh Allen is unbelievable. He's the best dual threat quarterback, not only in the league right now. Michael Vick never did anything like this. This is just ridiculous what he's doing, and he's for a guy 6'5", boy, does he accelerate. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, you really can't ask for a better Sunday's matchups are all about the quarterbacks. Mahomes versus
right.
Josh Allen and Brady versus Stafford. I mean, when Matthew Stafford is like the fourth best quarterback,
I know.
that's pretty good.
What a playoff game. People are killing him,
Yeah.
The Cardinals were they just really struggled. They played like they were the last month of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And no, it's funny. You and I kind of see all about the Bengal game. Wait, you said you like Buffalo, right? Or did you?
No, I actually like Kansas City to win.
Oh, you like Kansas City? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
okay,
I don't really bet against Mahomes and Reed in the playoffs very much. So
I hear you, but boy, the Bills are playing good defense. The only thing that worries me, this could be the first game where not having Tre'Davious White could be a factor.
Yeah.
But they've reined Mahomes in, man. They made because he was struggling so mentally early in the season when they had to lose there. I think there might have been 3 and 4.
Yeah.
Spags had to change the defense. They were playing too much man.
Yeah.
But Mahomes was turning the ball over. He wasn't processing well, and Andy reined it in, man. He's forced him to get rid of the ball quickly, and great coaching there. And it sure as heck has worked.
Yeah, reined it in. Was only thrown for about 280 and 2 instead of 380 and 4. A lot of quarterbacks wish that they were reined in. Like
but they were forcing it. He was forcing it, and Mike Kafka's tremendous, by the way. He's going to be an OC soon and the head coach someday. Yeah. He's their pass game coordinator. He literally puts everything together, all their concepts together, and they just – it is amazing. They're basically a two-person guy. They're two pass target offense, really. A little bit of Byron Pringle and Demarcus Robinson. It's typically just Kelsey and Hill. So the Bills had 7 straight drives with a touchdown, right?
Was that what it was? Jeez.
I think it was 7.
Wow.
And the Chiefs got down 7-0, and they just looked sloppy early on. Then they went on what I call the onslaught, and it was just, whoa.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Both quarterbacks had 5 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Amazing. So that's going to be the game of the weekend, you would think.
Can't wait.
The best game.
Yep.
All right, let's get to Ask ITB.
Yep.
First question. Why don't you read them off?
From our friend Anish David. Good to see you, Anish.
Yeah.
DE is a definite need for this team going forward. Oh, yeah. Is it more likely? This is a great question. Is it more likely to be fulfilled via draft, trade, or free agency? I would say draft and free agency. They'll definitely draft one. I think they need to add to. Now, here's a question. Let me throw this back at you. Do you? We'll get more into this when we go over the position groups and kind of what our early intel might be. But what do you think of them bringing back Barnett?
No, I don't think it's going to happen. So I think he's going to get a multi-year deal for too much money. He'll get either starter or like top end number 3 rotational pass rusher money, but he's not going to serve that purpose for the Eagles next year. So you wouldn't pay him that. I agree. I think they're going to draft at the end. I think they're going to draft the end pretty high, probably in the first round. A guy that they're going to want to get on the field right away. You're going to have Brandon Graham and Josh Sweat back. So those will be your top 2 along with the high pick. That'll be 3. And I imagine that they will sign a veteran DN to a 1-year deal.
For depth.
So like they've done with Kerrigan, for depth, like they've done with Chris Long, just to add to the mix. So that's what I I don't have a name right now. I haven't looked at the DN list, but that's what I suspect.
Yeah, we'll have the ability
to play Milton Williams a little bit at the end too. So
yes, and also Teron Jackson, depending on how. See, Anish asked a great follow-up. Also, could you state those schemes that may fit multiple schemes? The players who could fit multiple schemes, since Gannon could be a head coach somewhere. Well, Gannon. See, what's interesting is Gannon, as the season went along, started running multiple fronts. 34, 43, obviously. 5-2 is almost their base. With Avery. Now, we don't know. See, here's another thing, Anisha, if he comes back, if Gannon's back, we have no idea if they're going to keep Avery with that same role that he had. It's just, there's a lot we don't know about why Gannon did certain things. Because there were certain things we saw in training camp, which he did, and there's certain things that did in training camp they didn't wind up doing. We don't know if it's because he didn't have the right personnel, or it's because Brandon Graham got hurt. Don't know that.
Correct.
So, we have one thing though before we move on. I thank you all for these questions. They're phenomenal. There's so many of them. What we're gonna do now going forward for several months. Each show we're gonna have like a 10 to 15 minute Ask ITB. We'll take 3 to 5 questions because there's gonna be spillover. We got like 40 questions. We can't get. We don't have 3 hours. So let's get to more questions from Alex Vella Vaello.
I'm gonna guess that's Vallejo.
Vallejo, I thought. Vallejo, right.
Remember Destiny Vallejo?
Yes, but he spelled it differently, though.
Maybe it's a relative.
Yeah, no, but he spells it differently. This Alex spells it differently.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
What a name, Destiny. Roseman seemed more enthusiastic about endorsing Hurts than he did when he endorsed Wentz last year. What was an appropriate expectation for Hurts going into year 3? What other player may he compare to? What are your thoughts?
I love the comparison question because I've really been trying to think about, who his comp is. And I think, again, a lot of this will depend on what they're going to do offensively next year, whether they're going to try to become a more traditional, West Coast offense with him as featured as a runner at times, or if they're going to go full on Ravens offense. I don't know, but I do feel like, man, I hate doing this because sometimes inevitably somebody's like, oh, what a terrible, but I feel like Kaepernick might be someone that you can compare him to when Kaepernick was coming up with the Niners.
Go for it. Go for it. Oh God, people don't. He was unbelievable. That
pretty good.
And that was the championship game in 2012. Yes,
against the Packers, where he rushed for 200 yards.
Packers game. Yeah, whatever year that was. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what a game.
Yeah, that was amazing. So,
Hurts is not that explosive. That's to be honest, he's not even close.
He's not. And I think Kaepernick probably had a better arm too. If I'm not, he had a.
He did. Oh yeah,
Rocket. He had a really strong
guy too. Yeah, he's a pretty big guy.
Is there?
But I get what you mean.
Yeah. Is there someone else? Is there someone that comes to your mind?
I don't know. But what I had said months ago was his upside in terms of just people have rankings. I thought if Hurts could be a much better passer, and we have no idea if we ever get there. But if he could just be an above-average passer, he's not now. He's below average because plus they don't ask him to throw from the pocket enough. But you do see signs. That Denver game, the Atlanta game was like, I hate to say easy throws. They were just throws you got to make. He made tough throws in that Denver game. Like that's what you would hope. You're not going to ask him to do that every week. It's not fair. No one's that good. No one's going to do this every week. Or beat Tom Brady. But have more games like that. He just didn't. So it's hard to compare him to anyone, but in terms of upside, I think he could be in the upper half. If he maxes out his upside, because he's got the work ethic you want, he's coachable, great kid, coach's son, which I do believe helps, because that means you're going to be, in most cases, very coachable. I don't know if any coach's sons are not, because they know the expectations, you got to listen. And, he'll work hard, but I just don't know. He's not as gifted as a passer as you like him to be. But it doesn't mean he can't improve a lot, as a matter of fact. Just coaching's important here. There's no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say upper half would be his max. Somewhere, I used this before, somewhere around the Kirk Cousins area, 13th or 14th overall. Because he can run. He's a dual threat guy. You saw everyone, I could see it in my eye, the throw down to Devontae Smith, big time throw against Denver.
Mm-hmm.
The big time throw to Watkins in week 2. Where he basically they rolled him out, which I wish they would do more of. This bothers me that they didn't do more of that. When he rolled him out and he put everything into it, he got his hips into it, he torqued the hell out of it and threw it, whatever it was. Catch and run was 91 yards, but he threw it at least 50 yards.
Right.
I'm not saying he could do that again, but you see when he gets squared up, which he doesn't do a good job of enough of yet, what he can do. But I'm saying max, folks. I'm not saying he's going to be. Don't misquote me. But I do believe it's in him if he's able to take the big step this season, if he's going to be the starter. Now, they said it, but, again, it's what they say and then what they do are different things. But we can only go by what they said, so we're going to hold them to it.
All right, there you go. All right, make sure you check out our friends at PHLSportsNation.com, enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams for the fan, by the fan. That's their motto. Check them out at PHLSportsNation.com and on Twitter at PHLSportsNation. We'll pause real quick for a word from our great sponsors, including our friends at Sky Motor Cars. And if you stop into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You'll get a great deal. All right, next question. Did you want to get the one from PJ Gillick, or did we already?
We'll use that because he's got 4. So I'm going to save that for our next show on Monday.
All right, PJ, we'll hang on there. We'll get you some point. Go ahead.
They're good. They're not all the same. They're 4 different ones. They're really different. Although a lot of people have asked us on who would replace Gannon if he becomes a head coach somewhere. I don't have the names yet, but I will. We'll do our best to have them by Monday, and maybe by then, because these head coaches are going to roll next week. The jobs will be one. They'll be named. They'll come out next week. Let me see here. What other ones could we get to very quickly here? Erwin Chen asks, this is an interesting question. It's kind of what we said earlier, but I have some thoughts on this. What positional needs are more likely to be filled permanently for the draft and free agency versus the draft?
Oh, that's easy.
Good.
Well, I mean, I think it's the places where you need immediate holes filled, and you can't rely on the draft, and they may not have high positional positional value in the draft. So linebacker and safety are two areas where I would expect them to make the kind of mid-level free agent moves to get someone that fits their scheme. They did that to get Nigel Bradham for Jim Schwartz, before 2016.
Sure.
They did it to get Rodney McLeod and Malcolm Jenkins. I mean, they show you pretty frequently that they will like to address linebacker and safety with free agents.
There were home runs, by the way.
Their drafts. Yeah.
There were home runs. No, there were home runs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Absolutely.
I mean, those are. I wasn't so sure about Bradham, but he turned out to be really solid. Obviously, Malcolm was like a home run, grand slam, and so with Rodney McLeod. This guy was an undrafted free agent, and there were so many teams in on him. They were able to pay him what might have been $6 million or $7 million a year on his first contract. But yeah, I agree with you. I think safety. They'll never do two safeties like in the draft. They're not going to draft like one in the second round and one in the third, and they'll be the starters. That's not the way they roll.
Correct.
I don't agree with it. But look, they were going to take Jeremy Chin. We know that in the second round had they not drafted Reagor. I mean, Hurts. But history shows Roseman drafts a certain way. He doesn't usually deviate it in terms of positional value. He doesn't draft linebackers early. He doesn't draft corners early, usually, or safeties. He just doesn't.
Right. Now, there are other positions I can see them. Now, wide receiver is the X factor. I can't tell if they'll make a big splash or kind of 1 year. Like, there are a couple of guys who would make pretty good 1 year type of signings, like a DJ Shark or a maybe
Love
even
Shark.
a Juju.
Yeah.
Juju
Eagles liked him, by the way. That draft, let me see, was it 18?
Yeah.
Guy they were super high on. They just I'd have to go back and look at what happened. Well, they had a great draft. They got all of them right, all five of them in 2018. Maybe that's why they didn't get him, that they didn't have enough picks. But as a guy that I know, he was in consideration for the second round. But again, I don't know, because remember they traded out and they got Goddard. It was a good move, and that was with Baltimore, I think, so they can get Lamar Jackson, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't remember at this point. I think you're right. Yeah. But they traded up to get Dallas Goedert because they traded over Dallas to get him. So I don't know if that was the same.
No, but they traded out of two, and then I think
first
they
traded out, and then okay.
Yeah, I think that's what they did. But
yeah.
Okay, so Erwin, I would say based on history, like DN, I agree with what Geoff said. I think they'll do both draft and free agency. I would say that corner will definitely be in the draft. We're not even in. We haven't even got the Senior Bowl yet, so we don't have the names yet of where teams are grading. In fact, most teams only had one big draft meeting. There's so many more. We don't know when we talk to people around the league, kind of where guys are slotted. Like I could tell you in like mid-March, not most teams, a lot of teams had Surtain over Horn. Then I went closer to the draft. I put out there they're going to go over Surtain, almost certainly. Some people thought I was crazy, but it just, I know beauty's in the eye of the beholder. There's certain corners, some are better press, some are better off, some are slot, some are zone, some are better at man. But the Eagles need a big-time young corner. Now, the other question, we had got like 3 questions on McPherson. He didn't prove anything. He was decent on special teams. He did improve when he got thrown in there. He showed some signs of improvement, but he's not in the running for people who asked to be a starter. That's definitely not the case.
I mean, you saw him in the Dallas game. He didn't really hold up his end of the bargain a few times there. So he's got a lot of learning to do. All right, one more.
Let me see. Michael Sweeney. I don't know who you're talking about. It says, who's the best under the radar player this year in your opinion? I don't know if you're talking draft or I don't know what that means. So we'll skip that one. Could be a great question. Just
follow up if you mean from the Eagles season or in free agency. Yeah.
Right. Because boy, I like the way you phrase it. I just would love to know what you're talking about. This is a good one from Wes Collins. I like this one. We got 7 or 8, which we'll get to the next show. But Wes asks, does this front office still look at each position on the football team and see if there's a possibility of an upgrade at that position when preparing for free agency and the draft? QB and other positions come to mind this offseason. I know this is a broad question. No, this is what Bill Polian told us. Bill said that towards the draft, he didn't care what it was. If there's an upgrade, go draft him.
Yep.
And he jokingly said if there was one better than Peyton Manning, he would have done it, but there wasn't anyone better than Peyton, so he didn't do it. So
that's why we talk about best player available all the time.
Right. And that's so when they drafted Dillard, Wes, I'll give you an example. When they drafted Dillard, the word around the team was they were going to draft a left tackle. They were ready to replace Peters, and this was going to be the year. Now, I don't have the draft in front of me in 2019. Wasn't a bad pick. He's certainly showed some promise when he played, but the fact of the matter is a guy played rugby, never played football in his life, who might be one of the best left tackles in Eagles history. When he's done, maybe a Hall of Famer, beat him out. Like, you couldn't make that up, but it's the truth with Mailata. Mm-hmm. But I don't think Dillard – I think Dillard, what happened there was – and I get it. Their board said that's – their board – was their board 19? You know, that draft is not very good on paper right now. Dillard – and the other problem with Dillard is he will not play right tackle. He's just not comfortable with it. That hurts their ability to trade him in terms of getting – they'll get – I still think they'll get a third if they wind up trading him. But, Wes, getting back to your question – yes, they do. They do some for depth when they look at free agents. And with Slay, it was 100% about upgrade. They needed a true number 1 corner, and they got one.
Yeah. Hey, look, man. I'm just for one example. You know, the Bengals really needed an offensive lineman, and they had some pretty good. You know, T. Higgins had a really nice rookie year, and Tyler Boyd has had 2,000-yard seasons. Okay, yeah. 2,000-yard seasons Tyler Boyd's had. They took Jamar Chase, and they are better for it because he was an obvious upgrade that was going to take them from here to here. If you can see me, I'm raising my hand as an offensive unit with Joe Burrow. And so it proved to be the right move for them. Even though they had good wide receivers and could have used Penei Sewell or another offensive lineman, they took the best player available, and it benefited them. So that's just one example.
I'll give you one more. Give you one more. Gil Brandt, the Hall of Fame personnel man, told me many years ago. We were sitting in his room. We were somewhere. We met up somewhere, and he said the biggest mistake of his career was in 1979. You know, Danny White was taking over as quarterback of the Cowboys. Roger Staubach just retired. They already had, I don't know, maybe 4 quarterbacks on the roster. Mm-hmm. They didn't need a quarterback, so they passed on Joe Montana. Though they're great, I think. This is almost probably 20 years ago that Gil told me this. But they passed on Montana because they just didn't need a quarterback. Although their grade, if I remember correctly, Gil said their grade, so they should take him here, but they didn't need a quarterback.
Right.
It's like Tom Brady. The Patriots' grade was much higher. And Scott Piola told me years ago, he said, the name kept staring us on the board. We better take him. But they were going through other needs. And think about it. They could have gotten hosed.
They could have.
You know?
Hey, and you know, just to bring it home, the Eagles took Landon Dickerson in the 2nd round. They've been pretty good on the offensive line.
Unbelievable.
And you know, the Joker was sitting out there, Owosu Amaya. There was a couple other safeties, Richie Grant. Trying to Trevon Moore. Guys who are going to be good players. But you know what? That's their philosophy. They took the best. That guy Dickerson was a top 20 talent without the injuries, and so they said, "Hey, we're going to go with the best."
He kicked. By the way, he
was amazing.
Kicked ass. We didn't talk about him enough. I'm kind of surprised he's as good as he is so far with that knee. Now, I know pass blocking is something he's got to get better at, but he's an absolute ass kicker, and he's a big-time leader.
Yep.
And it's funny, before we get out here, Kevin Colbert apparently is going to retire after the draft for the Steelers. Maybe the best at drafting receivers in NFL history. Like, he'd never get to them wrong. It's incredible.
Roseman, there's a maybe about it. He is, yeah.
Yeah, he's best. Right. Sure. Okay. Roseman is unbelievable, and obviously you got to give Jeff Stoutland credit, but he's just great at drafting offensive linemen. Receivers, not so much.
Right.
But linemen, I don't know. I don't know how he's so good at it, other than he obviously listens to people who work for him, and he's got it. He obviously watches enough tape to know what he's looking at.
Right.
That's why when you get it right on the lines, Joe Douglas told me this. Joe Banner's told us this. You starts up front, you don't go back to front, you go front to back.
Right.
When you do that, you're halfway there. You're halfway getting it right.
No doubt.
That's
No
why they
doubt
win.
about it. No doubt about it. All right, we will get to more Ask IDB questions in the next episode. I like your idea. We'll try to cover a few as we go throughout. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles Intel. Big thanks to our producer, Hunter Brody. You can check out his work on his YouTube channel. It's called Sports Talk with Broads. And you can find his work also at broadsmedia.com. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the bird.